Chapter 2209. Late at night, Luo Qingchen was lying in bed, holding her phone with one hand, her mind replaying Yu Qinjin's words. "Do you dare to call? Do you dare to call? Do you dare to call?" These 4 words were like a nightmare, lingering in her mind. She picked up her phone, thought for a while, looked at Yu Qinjin's number, but didn't call in the end. She was a bit scared, not knowing what to say. If she could only chat awkwardly, wouldn't it be very boring? At the same time, Yu family's mansion. Yu Qianjin was holding a cup of coffee in his hand, in front of the window on the 33rd floor, squinting slightly, a string of numbers written on the glass with a marker. It was Luo Qingchen's phone number. He took a sip of coffee, his eyes carrying a faint gentleness. A very strange feeling spread from his heart, bringing with it a slight excitement and an unknown expectation. He had never felt this way before. To him, it was as if a beam of light had suddenly shone into his dark heart. A beam of dazzling light, making him unable to open his eyes. There was only one image left in his mind, the girl indifferently standing in the same place, the blood from her palm dripping down her fingertips. She didn't have any expression, as if it wasn't her blood. The next morning, Luo Qingchen went to the breakfast shop she frequented like before. A cup of soy milk, an omelette. Just as she was about to take out the money, the boy standing beside her said, "Pay together." Luo Qingchen froze for a moment, turned her eyes, her eyebrows slightly trembling. "Lu Qiufan? I used to often see you eat breakfast at this shop, so I came in today to try it." Lu Qiufan raised her right hand, pointed at her hand and said, "Are you better? It wasn't that big of a deal." Luo Qingchen lightly shook and said, "The bandage was a bit exaggerated. Yesterday, classmate, this is your morning exercise." Lu Qiufan's words were interrupted by the waiter. Luo Qingchen took the breakfast and said, "Let's talk while we walk." All right, from Moonstar Road to Alice Academy was a road that almost every student had to pass through. Those who were eye-catching would always receive special attention. As soon as she walked out of the breakfast shop, she and Lu Qiufan became the center of attention. The passing students would always take a second look at them before covering their mouths and muttering to themselves, "Wow! Isn't this the girl who confessed to Jin Xiao yesterday? Yes. She actually came to school with campus hunk Lu. F***ck, why do I feel like there's gossip? What are you gossiping about? I heard that they were originally deskmates. The onlookers always liked to see how a person's brain could blow things up. All kinds of guessing statements could be said with certainty, as if they had seen it with their own eyes. Lu Qiufan didn't seem to care at all. There was no trace of fear in her clear eyes. It was as if yesterday's incident had given him a kind of redemption, a redemption that came from the bottom of his heart. "I should have apologized to you guys yesterday." Lu Qiufan pursed her lips, her beautiful dimples faintly visible as she said, "I didn't come to help at the first moment, causing you 2 girls. I'm really sorry." "I accept your apology," Li Yao said. Luo Qingchen shook the soy milk in her hand and said, "Although there are a lot of things in this world that don't concern you, there are still some things that must be done." Chapter 2210. For a long time, Lu Qiufan's eyes looked at her very seriously. He didn't know what kind of feeling it was, but it was as if he, who was originally in the depths of a quagmire, suddenly grasped a life-saving straw. This straw saved his faith. Actually, young Master Jin's confession, you don't necessarily have to agree. Lu Qiufan's eyebrows slightly raised, his gaze carrying a touch of depth as he said, "I think he won't make things difficult for you." Then you're really thinking too much." Luo Qingchen's voice didn't fall, when a cold voice slowly sounded from behind her. Everything around them seemed to be frozen. The students who were originally surrounding them simultaneously stopped at this moment, as if even the first wisp of cold wind of early winter had stopped. Yu Qianjin seemed to have this kind of aura, making people unconsciously hold their breath. Ahem. She cleared her throat, the first to return to her senses, and waved her hand towards Yu Qianjin, awkwardly smiled and said, "Hi." Seeing this, Yu Qianjin slowly walked forward, took her other hand and said, "From the moment I confessed to you at 5:20 in the afternoon yesterday, you were destined to be my person in life, and my ghost in death." Hiss! A touch of cold air entered her ears. Yu Qianjin's strong aura walked to her side, took her other hand, and pulled her into his arms. The next second, his deep eyes flashed with a touch of faint coldness, his eyebrows slightly raised as he looked at Lu Qiufan in front of him and said, "Everyone knows that I have a bad temper. Of course, I absolutely don't mind if she has friends of the opposite sex. Especially your kind." Suddenly, Luo Qinchen felt the incomparably strong possessiveness of the man beside her. Every word was eroding her heart layer by layer. She had to say Yu Qianjin's words were really direct. "But I think you should give her a chance to choose." Lu Qiufan narrowed his eyes, there wasn't the slightest trace of fear in his eyes. Once a person was redeemed, they would do a lot of things and become more self-centered. The things that he didn't dare to do and say before had now become fearless. Yu Qianjin narrowed his eyes slightly and said word by word, "She doesn't have such a chance." Ever since he was young, he had never liked anyone. He didn't even know what like was or what it felt like to like someone. Because he didn't understand, he was casual. Because he didn't understand, he was fearless. Because he didn't know anything, he was unfaithful. It was precisely because he didn't understand it that the girls around him always came one after another. He didn't know why they were staying. Was it because of their looks or because of money? Therefore, the time that those girls stayed by his side was always very short. It could be as long as a few days or as short as a few hours. He couldn't find any interest, and his temperament became more and more overbearing, more and more cold, but now, since he had found it, he would definitely not let it go, much less give it up. Unless he was dead, Lu Qiufan frowned and looked at Luo Qinchen, who didn't say a word. She was silent for a long time and didn't reply in the end. The more outstanding a person was, the more similar his taste was. He thought that Luo Qinchen was outstanding, and Yu Qianjin could naturally see that too. It was very much Yu Qianjin's style to possess the person he loved by any means. Chapter 22:11. As soon as his voice fell, he held Luo Qingchen's shoulder and left without hesitation. Luo Qingchen, who had suddenly been promoted from a cannon fodder to a female lead, hadn't yet recovered from the secret competition between the two boys. Yu Qianjin was different from the other nobles in the class. He was indeed arrogant and conceited, but he disdained to use his so-called power to suppress someone. In his eyes, this kind of victory couldn't be called a victory at all. He was domineering, and once he decided on something, no one could change it. At this time, the only feeling in Luo Qingchen's mind was that Yu Qianjin was even more domineering than she had imagined. Especially that sentence, "In life you're my woman, in death you're my ghost." As for Lu Qiufan, she could always feel a power that she had never felt before from this elegant and gentle boy. He seemed to have completely abandoned his original self and become a new Lu Qiufan. Luo Qinchen could roughly guess that it was because of what happened yesterday that changed him, but she didn't know who exactly changed him. Maybe it was little Fatty's fearlessness, maybe it was Mu Nanshi's transformation, or maybe it was her indifference. But these didn't seem to be important anymore. He could find himself again and become the original Lu Qiufan, which was undoubtedly the biggest change for him. Along the way, Yu Qianjin firmly held her hand as they walked into the campus and walked on the path full of pear blossoms. Onlookers in twos and threes took out their mobile phones and quietly took photos. The whole school's forum instantly boiled over. The biggest title was, "The Prince and Cinderella, Alice Academy's beautiful campus hunk Jean Shao confesses to an ordinary student." The photos uploaded in the post were very clear. In addition to the photos taken in the class yesterday, there were also photos taken in front of the breakfast shop today. In less than half an hour, The post had been refreshed to more than 1,000 posts. At least 80% of the people expressed surprise and jealousy, and only a few gave their blessings. It was a tragic sight. However, most of them were using new accounts or were using anonymous accounts. After all, Yu Qianjin, the only heir of the Yu family, one of the 4 major families in a city, wasn't someone that ordinary aristocrats could afford to offend. Luo Qingchen only knew about it when Mu Nanxi told her in the first PE class. When he opened the forum, there were already more than 3,000 comments. As far as the eye could see, more than half of the people on the field were holding their phones and typing furiously. They were probably writing replies at a high speed. Luo Qingchen glanced at a few replies and snorted coldly. It was really a classic example of the grapes are sour if you can't eat them. Top 1. Snow White is me. I'm really funny. Why would young Master Jean take a fancy to this kind of person? Her looks are also very ordinary. It didn't look good at all. Anonymous, I admit it, don't be jealous. Heart of Eternity, so jealous. Moonyen, I'm so jealous. 302 replies in total. Top 2 Lavender Fragrance. So envious, so envious, so envious plus 10,086. 108 replies in total. Top 3 A Little Sweetheart. I don't think this will last long. Everyone knows what kind of person young Master Jean is. He's just playing around, let's disperse. 99 replies in total. Hey, what do you want to say? Mu Nanxi, who was sitting next to her, saw that she was flipping through 10 lines at a glance with almost no pause. Looking at her expression, she knew that she probably didn't care about this matter very much. What can I want to say about this kind of thing? It's not that I'm confident, but they really can't be called opponents. Luo Qingchen shrugged with an indifferent expression. Chapter 22:12. But I do care about one person's comment. Mu Nanxi pointed at the screen and said, scroll down. It should be on the 7th page. Whose comment? Luo Qingchen asked as she scrolled down to the 7th page. In that instant she was attracted by Mu Nanxi's comment. It was an anonymous comment with only a few words, but it received many replies from her classmates. This comment also hit Luo Qingchen's heart, causing her to break out in a cold sweat. Anonymous, don't you know the legend of Alice? It's actually very easy for someone to fall in love with someone else. 85 replies. The legend of Alice? Luo Qingchen frowned slightly, suddenly recalling He Qingqing's gaze and her words that day. Those scenes were like scenes from a movie, flashing before her eyes one by one. This is the last time I'm buying you water. That bottle of mineral water. Luo Qingchen froze for a moment. She wasn't too confident in her wild speculation and frowned. Don't tell me there's really that kind of magic potion. If it was in the past, she definitely wouldn't believe this kind of thing. After all, this was a serious school dimension. How could there be a potion that would make you fall in love with someone else? But when all the impossibilities were mixed together, she went from a skeptic to a believer in Buddhism. After all, that sudden 100% favorable impression did cause her to be very confused. Magic potion? Mu Nanxi shook her head and said, You're thinking too much. I'm a bit surprised to hear these words coming out of your mouth. After all, in her eyes, Luo Qingchen was such a confident person. Even if it was Yu Qianjin's confession or his love for her, she might not be as surprised and panicked as others. How could such a person believe in the legend of Alice? I don't know either, but if I'm not wrong. Luo Qingchen's gaze landed on the screen again. She narrowed her eyes and said, This person is He Qingqing. He Qingqing? Mu Nanxi shrugged and chuckled. Then there's no need to care about what she said. She's obviously unwilling to accept it. Hearing this, Luo Qingchen heaved a long sigh of relief and didn't reply. She nodded slightly, and her gaze fell on the basketball court, on the young man who was the center of attention. Every single one of his clean three-pointers caused the audience to scream. And he would always turn around and look at her the moment the ball dropped. It was a focused, domineering, and gentle gaze. At the same time, in a cafe outside the school. Because it was morning, the cafe had just opened and there were very few people inside. There was a group of people sitting in the innermost private room. He Ching-Ching, Yi Sitian, and a group of girls following behind Yi Sitian. Miss He, it's indeed not a good thing to skip class so early in the morning. If you have something to say, just say it. Yi Sitian crossed her arms and rolled her eyes. But don't make me do anything to Luo Qingchen. Sister Meili is still lying in the hospital. You didn't see how serious it is. Sister Meili. He Ching-Ching frowned and said, she's in the hospital. Chapter 22:13. Ever since she saw Chen Meili, and now that Luo Qingchen was Yu Qinjin's girlfriend, she knew that this person was no longer someone she, Yi Sitian, could afford to offend. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but she couldn't. Unless there was a particularly good opportunity, she was sure that she would throw caution to the wind and hit her when she was down. You're so scared of an ordinary student? He Ching-Ching laughed coldly. She doesn't have the right to be young Master Jin's girlfriend. She's not worthy. But young Master Jin confessed to her in front of everyone. How can you? That wasn't him. He Ching-Ching interrupted Yi Sitian before she could finish her sentence. She almost screamed out loud as she bit her lip. It's because of the magic potion. What did you say? Yi Sitian's eyes widened, and her voice was sharper than hers. When it came to the magic potion, Alice believed in it without a doubt. After all, the reason why she chose the chemistry department was because she wanted to know about the legend from 30 years ago. It was a type of potion. As long as it was mixed with special ingredients and given to the person you loved, you would fall madly in love with them. The mineral water I gave young Master Jin that day was the magic potion. He Ching-Ching clenched her fists unwillingly, her eyes bloodshot. She couldn't accept it, she really couldn't accept it. Ever since she had accidentally obtained this book in the library, she had been researching this magic potion for the past few months, forgetting to eat and sleep. It was all for the sake of letting the person she loved look her in the eye and fall in love with her. But what she didn't expect was that after all her hard work, it was all for someone else in the end. Why? Oh my God, you've researched the magic potion? Yi Sitian's phoenix eyes shone with desire as she grabbed the corner of He Ching-Ching's clothes. Miss He is indeed a talented woman. You're really amazing. You don't have to flatter me. He Ching-Ching raised her head arrogantly and looked at Yi Sitian. Since I'm here to work with you, I'll satisfy your inner needs. Wait, work with me? Yi Sitian said in disbelief. Miss He also wants to work with me? Besides, I just said that young Master Jin. Master Jin doesn't love her. He Ching-Ching almost roared out in anger. She suddenly slapped the table and said, if it wasn't for my medicine, Master Jin wouldn't even look at her. She had scolded herself countless times for her negligence this time. If she had understood the meaning of that last sentence, she wouldn't have. Then I don't understand. If young Master Jin drank your so-called magic potion, the person he loved should be you. How did he become that commoner? Because of her blood. He Ching-Ching took a deep breath and said, because young Master Jin drank a potion mixed with her blood. Yi Sitian was shocked when she heard that. She looked at He Ching-Ching in shock and said, damn, explosive. No wonder young Master Jin, who has always been extremely indifferent to girls, suddenly made that commoner his girlfriend. Nonsense. How could young Master Jin's eyes be so bad? He Ching-Ching gritted her teeth and said, that filthy commoner with no status, I won't let her have her way. What do you need me to do? Yi Sitian sized He Ching-Ching up and said, you couldn't have told me such a huge secret just to share it with me, right? Chapter 22:14. But haven't you already concocted a magic potion? Yi Sitian furrowed her brows in confusion. Don't tell me this potion will still fail? No. He gently shook her head. It won't fail, but I'm going to concoct a different kind of potion. What is it? An antidote. An antidote that could make Yu Qianjin stop madly in love with Luo Qingchen after drinking it. The second-class math class. When Luo Qingchen returned to the classroom, she discovered that the things on her desk had already been moved to the back row. Her neatly arranged textbooks and pencil case were quietly placed on Yu Qianjin's desk. Two boys with glasses lowered looked at her respectfully. "Sister-in-law, for the sake of your relationship with young Master Jean, we took the initiative to help you change your seat." Luo Qingchen didn't believe the words "took the initiative." If it wasn't for Yu Qianjin's instructions, how could these lackeys behind him take the initiative? Ahem, she cleared her throat, I remember that I don't have a textbook. On her first day here, Yi Sitian had already thrown her textbook to God knows where. She was too lazy to look for it. After all, these questions weren't difficult for her. It didn't matter whether she had a textbook or not. "Sister-in-law, how can you not have a textbook?" Glasses guy number 1 stood up and said, "From now on, we'll be sister-in-law's little followers. We'll be available 24 hours a day." Glasses guy number 2 hurriedly echoed, "Yes, yes. If sister-in-law calls us, we'll feel uncomfortable all over when we're idle." "You guys, hee." Luo Qingchen was just about to say something when she was interrupted by two sneers. Yi Sitian stuck her hands in her pockets and chewed gum in her mouth. She rolled her eyes at Luo Qingchen arrogantly and said, "Some people just aren't narcissistic. She really thinks that she's a phoenix. What a joke." The originally bustling classroom suddenly quieted down when Yi Sitian said this. Everyone's gaze fell on Yi Sitian at the same time. Some were surprised, while others agreed, although it had only been 2 days. The difference between Luo Qingchen now and the Luo Qingchen 2 days ago was like heaven and earth. Not only Luo Qingchen, but even her good friend Mu Nanshi was treated well. Some of the people who usually looked down on them began to smile at them, wanting to hug their thighs. After all, who was Yu Qianjin? There were at least dozens of nobles who wanted to get involved with the Yu family. Usually, he wouldn't have the chance, but this was the best chance to curry favor with this commoner. "What? Yi Sitian, are you jealous?" Before Luo Qingchen could speak, Mu Nanshi, who was standing nearby, spoke up for her. His tone was full of provocation, without a trace of fear. Luo Qingchen smiled faintly and gave Mu Nanshi a thumbs up. "Not bad, not bad. This girl has improved. She's becoming more and more like her when she's scolding people. Her tone, expression, and demeanor are all on point." Yi Sitian heard this and gritted her teeth, looking a little anxious. The next second, her sharp voice sounded again. "Don't you know whether young Master Jean really likes you? It was just a fluke. She had impressed Yu Qianjin because of He Qingqing's magic potion. What was there to be smug about? I know very well whether I really like her or not. What does it have to do with you?" A cold voice slowly sounded, almost freezing the surrounding air. Chapter 22:15. Yi Sitian only felt her back stiffen, and she unconsciously broke out in a cold sweat. Although she and Yu Qianjin were classmates, although she claimed to be a member of Yu Qianjin's fan club, although she used the banner of being a fangirl and didn't find the girls around Yu Qianjin pleasing to the eye. But in fact, she didn't even say a few words to Yu Qianjin. Most of the time, she just talked to herself and didn't get a response. But today, she could be considered to have truly spoken to Yu Qianjin. But there was no joy, only fear. "Young Master Jean. Yi Sitian's palms were tightly clenched together as she lowered her head and said, "I just don't want you to be deceived. Instead of discussing whether or not I've been deceived, why don't?" Yu Qianjin coldly raised his eyebrows and stepped forward to hold Luo Qingchen's hand and said, "First, tell me what will happen to those who bully my Yu Qianjin's girlfriend." His voice was very cold, and almost every word he said made people feel extremely oppressed. Yi Sitian couldn't stop swallowing her saliva, and her heart was beating rapidly. "Since you haven't thought it through, I'm afraid that Yi group won't show up in a city tomorrow." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone knew that young Master Jean had a black-bellied and overbearing personality, but they never thought that he would be so decisive in using his anger. Yi Sitian gritted her teeth and said loudly, "Classmate Luo, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have casually speculated about the relationship between you and young Master Jean, and I shouldn't have spoken loudly to you." Although Luo Qingchen didn't know why, she knew that Yi Sitian was unwilling to say those words. But when she saw her humble appearance, she inexplicably felt very pleased, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve into a faint smile. When Yu Qianjin saw her smile, he also felt inexplicably happy. Once upon a time, he had accidentally read a sentence in a book. You will be happy because she is happy, but you will be sad because she is sad. At that time, he had laughed at this sentence, but now he felt that it was the truth. Yu Qianjin's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly and said, "An apology is an apology, but it still depends on whether my girlfriend will forgive me." Mu Nanshi couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps it was because the anger that Yi Sitian had suppressed in her heart in the past had all been redeemed at this moment. Other than excitement, there was only one word that could describe it: satisfaction. Yi Sitian glared at Mu Nanshi angrily when she heard the laughter. Her red phoenix eyes were wide open, and her entire face was red with anger. However, with Yu Qianjin standing there, she couldn't say anything. She could only swallow her anger and endure it silently. "Student Luo, please be magnanimous and forgive me. Stop dreaming." Luo Qingchen didn't listen to her and directly interrupted her with a smile. "Of course I won't forgive you. You." Yi Sitian was furious, and her eyes looked like they were about to pop out. All the words she wanted to say were stuck in her throat, and she was so angry that she couldn't catch her breath. Luo Qingchen didn't bother to pay attention to her and directly turned back to her seat. Mu Nanshi gave her a thumbs up, her eyes filled with excitement. She sat in her seat and saw brand new textbooks, brand new stationery, brand new workbooks, and brand new deskmate. Chapter 22:16. However, it had to be said that after she became Yu Qianjin's girlfriend, even the math teacher, who had used all his strength to target her, had changed. During the entire math class, the math teacher had mentioned her name at least 10 times. Moreover, every time he mentioned her name, he would praise her endlessly for several minutes. Such an obvious action made Luo Qingchen feel inexplicably awkward. After all, the math teacher was different from Yi Sitian. As a teacher, she couldn't go up to the math teacher just because he was deliberately praising her. Although the math teacher didn't respect her elders, she couldn't disrespect her elders. Yu Qianjin probably saw through it. His right hand casually played with her curly hair as he said, "My girlfriend looks very shy." Ahem. Luo Qingchen cleared her throat and looked sideways at Yu Qianjin, who had a lazy expression against the light. The words that she wanted to say were at the tip of her tongue, but she actually felt a little nervous. "What's wrong?" He narrowed his eyes and looked at her with a touch of affection in his deep eyes. "Could it be that I want to confess to you?" Narcissist. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and snorted proudly. "I just want to formally discuss the matter of a girlfriend with you." Actually, she hadn't agreed to him yet. Actually, he also understood. "Qingchen, are you not going to agree now?" Yu Qianjin's slender fingers were still circling her hair, and his eyes were still gentle. "Yes." Luo Qingchen nodded sincerely. After all, she still didn't understand the matter of the magic potion. If he only liked her because of the magic potion, she couldn't accept it, okay? Then agree in the next second. Yu Qianjin's eyebrows moved slightly. He looked at her and said, "If you really can't, the next minute is fine. At most, the next hour will be fine." You. She suddenly felt that this male lead, Yu Qianjin, was even more two-faced than she had imagined. Moreover, he was the kind of man who was extremely possessive. He wouldn't allow anyone to have what he wanted. "Qi-chen, you're mine." He stopped what he was doing, looked at her seriously, and said word by word, "Unless you tell me you like someone else." "And if there is?" Luo Qingchen pursed her lips. "Does young Master Jean intend to let go, or is it a fair competition? Do you think such words will appear in my life?" Yu Qianjin had a deep smile on his face. He looked at her and said, "I'll kill him first, then I'll kidnap you." If a little girl heard this, she would probably smile. After all, in their world, they always liked the scene of the overbearing CEO falling in love with them. But when Luo Qingchen looked into his deep eyes and the smile on his lips, she felt a sense of panic. That was because some words that came out of other people's mouths were just empty words. However, the words that came out of Yu Qianjin's mouth were definitely not just empty words. "So decisive. That's how decisive I am." His low, cello-like voice rang in her ears, disturbing her mind. In fact, she didn't understand Yu Qianjin. She didn't understand him at all. But when she sat next to him, she felt a special sense of security. "Does the number you gave me last time still count?" Luo Qingchen pursed her lips. Her eyes flashed with a touch of liguang. There were some things that needed to be explained. "It will always be in effect." His deep ink-like eyes flickered with a faint light. "Unfortunately, someone doesn't dare to call." Ding-ling. The next second, Yu Qianjin's phone rang. Chapter 22:17. The surrounding air seemed to freeze at this moment. His deep eyes focused on her. His slender fingers slowly reached into the pocket of his school uniform and pressed the call button. He looked at her and said, "My girlfriend, what can I do for you?" "Tonight at the most central point of Star Moon Street, walk 30 steps to the right, then 60 steps forward. Turn right to your shop, I'll wait for you there." Luo Qingchen's eyebrows slightly moved. She thought she had used a particularly clever way to ask Yu Qianjin out. She didn't expect Moon Laurel Lane. He hooked his lips into a smile, his eyes flashing with a touch of blurriness as he looked at her and said, "I didn't expect. Our family's Qingchen actually likes bars. It's not like." Luo Qingchen shrugged her shoulders and chuckled. "I just want to have a drink with young Master Jean. It's easy for me to drink, I get drunk easily." Yu Qianjin slightly raised the corner of his mouth. "If you get drunk, don't blame me." "I don't blame you, I don't blame you." Luo Qingchen pulled the corner of her mouth into a smile. "What kind of person am I? How could I dare to blame young Master Jean?" In fact, Luo Qingchen didn't think so in her heart. Yu Qianjin wanted to drink, but he also had to look at the occasion, okay? What kind of place was Star Moon Street? It was the city center, okay? What kind of place was Moon Laurel Lane? It was a city that never sleeps, okay? There were so many people coming and going, she wasn't worried, okay? But this kind of thinking, when she arrived at Star Moon Street at night, she completely dispelled it. There was no one, not a single person, on both sides of the street. There were colorful balloons on each of the street lamps. From one end of the street to the other, it was covered with flower petals. The order of color was red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. The sound of a cello slowly sounded all around. The street lamps lit up one by one in the direction she walked in. At this moment, she really couldn't help but admire the Yu family's status in a city. She reckoned that only Yu Qianjin could book the city center in one night. After walking a few steps, the low sound of the cello turned into the melodious sound of a violin. Luo Qingchen roughly knew that the sound came from the shops on both sides, but the lights in the shops were all off, so she couldn't see clearly. Only when they stood at the entrance of Moon Laurel Lane did they feel that it was the only shop with light. "Good evening, Miss Luo." The waiters on both sides bowed to her respectfully. A beautiful piano sound slowly sounded, and the decorated stars in the sky flickered with a faint blue light. Luo Qingchen gave a knowing smile and walked in. Since the entire Star Moon Street prohibited outsiders from entering, it was even more impossible for anyone else to enter Moon Laurel Lane. Yu Qianjin stood at the bar counter and casually shook his glass. It was a tempting glass of blue champagne. I didn't expect young Master Jean to have such skills? Luo Qingchun stepped forward and pretended to be calm. She gently picked up the cup and took a sip. It's delicious. I wonder if Miss Qingchun wants to have a heart-to-heart talk with me tonight? Or, let's chat awkwardly for a while. Luo Qingchun drank the cocktail in her hand in one gulp. How about it? I think truth or dare is more practical. Yu Qianjin took out all kinds of cocktails from behind him and arranged them in a row. That's right, my alcohol tolerance isn't very good. Truth or dare? Luo Qingchun fiddled around in her heart. She didn't seem to have any shameful criminal record. Moreover, her identity back in the country was given by her family. Although Yu Qianjin was very powerful, the Luo family was also very powerful. And this time, for the sake of the leadership election, for her safety, she temporarily concealed her identity. Chapter 22:18. Okay. Luo Qingchun blinked her eyes, looked at the cocktail on the table and said, So, dare is to drink a glass? One glass is too little. Is it too little? Luo Qingchun pursed her lips and said, How many glasses? The cocktail's concentration is very high, okay? Although it tastes sweet and sour, it's super easy to get drunk. According to a normal person's alcohol tolerance, one glass is not too little. 10 glasses. Yu Qianjin hooked up his lips and smiled. In such a warm color scene, it looked particularly good. 10. Luo Qingchun froze for a moment, with the attitude of an acquaintance can't lose, resolutely replied, Deal. Anyway, her alcohol tolerance is not bad. Under normal circumstances, she shouldn't get drunk. Do you want to ask first, or should I ask first? Yu Qianjin raised his eyebrows, with a shallow gentleness in his eyes. In fact, when he saw her for the first time, he had a very familiar feeling. He thought that if he asked a little bit, she would stick to him like a fly. But he didn't know, her attitude was completely different from the girls he met in the past. That instant desire to conquer, he still can't forget. You ask first. Luo Qingchun's left hand rested on her cheek, eyebrows slightly moved, throwing an olive branch to the other party. After all, her questions may be a bit sharper. And in her opinion, Yu Qianjin knew so little about her, he shouldn't be able to ask any serious questions. Thinking of this, she leisurely picked up the watermelon juice on the side and drank 2 mouthfuls. Little did she know, before swallowing the watermelon juice, Yu Qianjin's question directly hit her heart. Is the password of your phone Lu Qiufan's birthday? Puff. Cough cough cough. Cough cough. Originally, seeing her mood change, he probably knew the answer. His heart inexplicably was somewhat unhappy. But seeing her choking, he couldn't help but pass her a tissue, patting her back and said, Drink slowly, the whole Xingyue street is the property of the Yu family, no one will snatch it from you. What? Luo Qingchun, who had already calmed down, heard Yu Qianjin's words, coughed twice. No wonder he could seal this place in one night and not see everyone. Fool! He raised his hand and gently touched her head. Actually, you don't need to answer, I probably already know. Of course not. Luo Qingchun seriously looked at his eyebrows and said, I didn't know Lu Qiufan before, how can I know his birthday? Really? Really? She wasn't lying. That was the password set by the original owner, not her. She couldn't carry it, she couldn't carry it, she couldn't carry it. Indeed, she didn't lie. Cough cough. Cough 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 cough. Cough 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 cough. Coo coo. Luo Qingchun cleared her throat and put the watermelon juice on the side with a smile. Is it my turn to ask? Luo it. She had to get to the bottom of this. Ask. Yu Qianjin lazily leaned on the chair. The corner of his mouth always had a faint smile. The side of his face against the dim light, it was indescribably beautiful. At this moment, she suddenly felt lucky that such a handsome young man confessed to her, and not someone else. But she was very worried, whether this confession was because he liked her, or other factors. Chapter 22:19. For a long time there was silence in the air. Yu Qianjin just looked at her like this, his deep eyes gradually becoming gentle and shimmering with a faint light. The next second, without saying anything, he picked up the wine glasses on the table and drank them one by one. Luo Qingchen was almost stunned on the spot, unable to come back to her senses. Because she completely did not expect Yu Qianjin to not even answer and directly choose to drink. After a minute, he finished 10 glasses of wine. His gentle gaze became a little hot. She saw him suddenly raise his right hand, clasped her neck, looked at her cherry lips, and without any explanation, sealed it with a kiss. What's going on? What happened? Who am I? Where am I? The moment she felt Yu Qianjin's deep kiss, these questions rushed into her blank mind at the same time. Why did he suddenly kiss her? What happened to the truth or dare? You haven't. She wanted to say something, but found that the more she opened her mouth to speak, the deeper Yu Qianjin's kiss became. It was as if he wanted to take over her mind and soul bit by bit, and constantly devour it. I told you, I can't hold my liquor well, and it's easy to lose control after drinking. After saying this, he directly carried her up by the waist and walked upstairs to the VIP room. Luo Qingchen could only feel her heart thumping non-stop. She could feel the faint smell of alcohol on Yu Qianjin's body, mixed with the original smell of his body's perfume, and it was especially pleasant. For a moment, in addition to nervousness, there was an inexplicable sense of anticipation. She always felt that this kind of thinking was not good, but this kind of bad thought kept appearing in her mind. A little bit of a little bit of infatuation, a little bit of indulgence. She even started to recall what kind of underwear she wore when she went out this morning. When the evil thoughts reached this level, she quickly shook her head, using her own rationality to cover up those messy thoughts, although it didn't seem to be of much use. Until Yu Qianjin carried her to the second floor, and slowly opened the door to a dark room. The moment she pushed the door open, she inexplicably felt the smell of alcohol and formalin mixed together. The originally dim room was instantly lit up. Young Master Jean, there were 3 people in the room, a doctor in a white coat and 2 angels in white. Luo Qingchen's head buzzed and suddenly stopped working. Yu Qianjin took her injured hand and carefully placed her on the hospital bed. Then, he lifted his right hand and tickled her nose. Just now when I carried you upstairs, were you thinking about? Of course not. She almost shouted out these 4 words. Her white cheeks instantly flushed red, and it quickly spread to her ears. This feeling was really not good. It was as if he had been completely seen through. Haha, Yu Qianjin saw her anxious and cute face and couldn't help but laugh. I wanted to take you to the hospital tonight to change your dressing, but you asked me out and I couldn't refuse, so I invited the doctor here. Hello Miss Luo, I'm the provincial chief doctor, Lu Yi, and also the private VIP doctor of Yu Group. Chapter 2220. Luo Qingchen nodded obediently. At this moment it would be a lie to say that she wasn't moved. Suddenly, a sentence flashed through her mind. It was a very warm sentence. When you don't understand a person, you will think that they are cold by nature. In fact, those cold people are just leaving their gentleness for the most important people. She seemed to be beginning to understand Yu Qianjin. If a person really walked into his heart, they would see his gentle, doting, and sunny side. If she was asked to use the word sunny to describe Yu Qianjin before, she definitely wouldn't be able to do it. But the way he looked at her when she smiled just now was really beautiful. That must be the Yu Qianjin that no one had ever seen before. Why don't you answer me? Luo Qingchen slightly nodded and looked at him. This answer is very important to me. Although she desperately told herself that in this world, at least in this plane, there shouldn't be such a thing as magic potion, everything was too coincidental. This kind of coincidence made her afraid that in the end everything was fake. Afraid that if this kind of potion really existed, anyone could become the person who could be gentle in his heart. The more you have, the more you are afraid of losing. Right now, she was feeling this way. When you finish changing the medicine, I'll tell you, okay? He looked at her slightly red eyes and thought that she was in pain because of the wound. He gently blew and said, don't cry, it will be fine soon. The wound is really deep. Dr. Liu frowned and said, such a deep wound really needs to be changed every day, otherwise it will be easy to get infected. Yu Qianjin looked at her wound and unconsciously frowned. This was the first time he saw her wound. The last time she was bandaging her wound in the hospital, he was waiting for her outside. This time, seeing it for real, he inexplicably felt suffocated and his heart ached. The scene that happened in the classroom that day flashed in front of his eyes at this moment. The feeling of self-blame spread from the bottom of his heart. Why did he ignore his own feelings when he clearly cared about her? Why did he clearly want to stand behind her, but he had to confirm his feelings again and again? If he stood by her side earlier, how could she have been so seriously injured? In fact, he had to thank Lu Qiufan for finally confirming his feelings. If it wasn't for the fact that the moment he handed her the handkerchief, the unwillingness in his heart had reached its peak, he wouldn't have known her feelings so clearly. It will hurt a little, Miss Luo, please bear with it. Dr. Liu dipped some iodine and carefully disinfected her wound. Yu Qianjin gently touched her face and let her head lean against his chest. He whispered, don't look, actually, she wasn't afraid of pain. She was already used to the feeling of a sword piercing into her body. She seemed to have a very low sensitivity to pain. Sometimes, the pain in her heart was much greater than the pain in her body. At this moment, Yu Qianjin gently touched her face and whispered in her ear, don't look, but she felt a faint tingling in her hand. It seemed that when there was someone in this world who loved and protected her, she would become especially fragile. That day, when he had grabbed Yi Xitian's fruit knife with his bare hands, he hadn't felt as much pain as he did now. Okay. Although the wound is deep, it won't leave a scar if it recovers properly. Dr. Liu glanced at Yu Qianjin and said, then, young Master Jin, we'll go out first. Okay. Yu Qianjin faintly responded, then his gaze fell on Luo Qinchen. Does it still hurt? She gently shook her head and pursed her lips. So you're like this, Yu Qianjin. I've always been like this, Yu Qianjin. He smiled, his beautiful eyes flashing. And the answer you wanted. What? Chapter 22-21. Perhaps it was because Yu Qianjin's earlier had reassured her that Luo Qinchen didn't feel anxious or uneasy for the next few days. But that didn't mean that Yi Xitian and He Qingqing didn't do anything. Not only did they do something, but they had also achieved result. In a dark chemistry laboratory, He Qingqing carefully picked up the experimental bottle on the table and added the last type of potion. Yi Xitian stood to the side and watched, looking particularly excited. It was her first time seeing the creation of a magic potion, so she couldn't help but feel excited. Moreover, it was the creation of an antidote, so she was naturally excited. Are you sure this is the antidote? Although she was very excited, she still had a skeptical attitude. After all, the so-called magic potion was a very mysterious thing. It wasn't easy to create it, let alone an antidote. You're doubting whether it's appropriate for someone to create a new magic potion after 30 years? He Qingqing raised her eyebrows, her eyes full of confidence. She had finally succeeded. After spending so much time and effort, she had finally created the antidote. As long as she had this antidote, Yu Qianjin wouldn't be so dead set on Luo Qinchen. How could such an outstanding man like him fall in love with such a dirty commoner? No, he couldn't, absolutely not. His love was sacred. Only she was worthy of him. Of course I believe you. After all, young Master Jin fell in love with Luo Qinchen because of the potion you created. No. He doesn't love Luo Qinchen. He Qingqing's eyes widened. Her originally fresh and girlish style was full of darkness. The dark night sky completely shrouded the tense atmosphere. All the chaotic stories were about to come to an end. those who used the magic potion to obtain true love. You're about to be baptized by the antidote. Those who are lowly will always be lowly and never be able to make a comeback. Yawn. In English class, Luo Qingchen let out a big yawn. Sitting at the same table as her, Yu Qianjin frowned slightly and asked with concern, "Have you caught a cold?" Luo Qingchen subconsciously sniffed and said, "Someone should be scolding me." Most of the time, a girl's sixth sense was very accurate, let alone a girl like her who could foresee the past and future in a short period of time. "Who dares to scold you?" Yu Qianjin's eyes became a little gentle, looked at her and said, "I will definitely beat him." Beep beep. Before she could finish her sentence, she received a WeChat notification. The message from Mu Nanshi was a link to a forum post. The title was very eye-catching. Magic potion, I have the antidote. The person who posted the post was anonymous. There weren't many words, but it was clear that he had come prepared. For those who think they've won the love of their idol, there's not much time left for you to show off. Enjoy your last few hours, ugly commoner. P.S. Staying in hell forever is not scary. What's scary is falling from heaven to hell. Actually, even if she hadn't clicked on the post, she would have known that the person who posted it was He Qingqing. Moreover, the main character mentioned in the post was definitely her. Mu Nanshi probably thought so too, which was why she forwarded the post to her. However, she guessed one thing right. He Qingqing was indeed the person who made the so-called magic potion, and she had also concocted the so-called antidote. Logically speaking, it would be a lie to say that she wasn't worried at all. Chapter 22-22. Luo Qingchen was reading the replies on the forum throughout the entire class. Many people had probably guessed that she was the female lead of the post, so there were a lot of people who participated in the discussion and commented. In fact, there were a few people who had a mocking tone and were waiting to watch a good show. Princess Royal Highness, the antidote is the most exciting thing. Give me a rainbow candy. So the original poster is saying that our school's hunk fell in love with LQC because of the magic potion? Qinglan, F***CK. Breaking news. Did someone in Alice finally develop the magic potion? Narcissism. Previous poster, please pay attention to your wording. The original poster has not only researched the magic potion, but also the antidote for the magic potion. Sunflower. I'll go. Is it that explosive? My heart is weak. But I'm inexplicably excited because my Prince Charming is everyone's again. Ungraduated automation department. Magic potion? If there's really such a thing, I'll drink 100 bottles, okay? The person involved isn't in a hurry, but all of you are. Sunflower, may I ask if this brother is the person involved? Unnecessary gentleness. You're talking as if you were the person involved? Give me a rainbow candy. Ignore him. Maybe he's actually a water army hired by a civilian. Disgusting. What followed was a row of replies from different floors. They were all short and neat with only 6 words. Autumn is getting stronger. The original poster is the person involved? Goobaba. The original poster is the person involved? Meow. The original poster is the person involved? Luo Qingchen thought that the person called Ungraduated Automation Department was really pitiful. Why did she feel like she was being attacked by a group of Yu Qianjin's little fangirls? As soon as the bell rang, Luo Qingchen was dragged to a corner by Mu Nanshi to discuss the forum post. Did you see it? That post was so mysterious that it made my scalp go numb. Mu Nanshi didn't believe it at first, but when everyone around her believed it, she was shaken. I didn't believe it at first either. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips, a faint light in her eyes. But there was a period of time when I was confused. You believed it? I'm half convinced. Luo Qingchen opened the forum post and said, some of the words in this post, He Qingqing didn't lie. For example, Jin Xiao drank the magic potion she concocted. Really? Mu Nanshi was obviously shocked and looked at her in disbelief. It was the day we saved little Fatty. Do you still remember? So young Master Jean likes you. Mu Nanshi frowned and paused. No way. I believe him. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath and shook her head. Instead, I hope that He Qingqing can quickly verify the so-called legend. She was not afraid, nor was she flustered. However, since He Qingqing and the others wanted an answer so badly, he would give them one. To borrow Yu Qianjin's words, whether he liked her now or not, he would definitely like her in the future. It was just a matter of time. The next morning, pear blossom petals fell slowly on the path leading to the teaching building, mixed with the first snowfall of early winter. Many people had gathered around. He Qingqing was wearing a light blue sweater and holding a bottle of mineral water in her hand, waiting for Yu Qianjin's arrival. Chapter 22-23. Of course, she wanted to completely throw the responsibility of developing the potion to Luo Qingchen. After all, this matter didn't seem to be glorious. At 8:10, 2/3 of the entire Alice Academy's people had already gathered here. The surrounding bustling noises were getting noisier and noisier. Some people firmly believed in the matter of the magic potion. After all, Yu Qianjin, who had always been surrounded by thousands of flowers and never touched a single leaf, suddenly had someone he loved. It was naturally hard to accept. Another small group of people believed that in today's society where science was the most important, if there really was such a potion, it would have been discovered by scientists long ago. But they weren't completely sure, so they naturally couldn't miss the time to verify the so-called magic potion. It's definitely a magic potion. This shameless commoner, in order to get young Master Jin's heart, she actually did such a dirty thing. I think so too. Whenever I think of young Master Jin's gentle appearance towards her, my heart especially hurts. Let's hurry up and reveal the truth. Waiting to see someone's appearance of being instantly disgusted, just thinking about it makes me excited. You bunch of little fangirls love to worry about nothing. Maybe young Master Jean and her really love each other. The next second, the surrounding girls all said in unison, "You shut up." The first snowfall of early winter was always especially beautiful. The delicate snowflakes slowly fell, as beautiful as cotton. Yu Qianjin stepped on this beautiful scenery, holding Luo Qingchen's hand as they walked into the school. Not far in front of them stood a dense crowd of students. If they walked a little closer, they could see He Qingqing in the center. "Qingchen." He softly called her name, his eyes flashing with a faint smile. His thin lips softly said, "No matter what I do in a moment, can you not blame me?" Luo Qingchen stared blankly for a moment. She probably also knew that Yu Qianjin must have heard some rumors and slanders in the past few days. It's just that the words he said to her were as different as heaven and earth from what she imagined. Shouldn't he have said, "No matter what happens, you don't have to worry"? This was the so-called reassuring pill. What Yu Qianjin fed her was a ticking time bomb. "What you do will be very..." She cleared her throat and bit her lip, shocked. "Yes." After Yu Qianjin answered without hesitation, he took her hand and walked forward without saying a word, until they stopped about 3 meters away from He Qingqing. Young Master Jean. She was afraid that Yu Qianjin would walk over, so she took the initiative to call out to him. The originally noisy surroundings instantly fell into a deathly silence. Everyone held their breaths and stared, not daring to make a single sound. He gently bit her lips, took a deep breath, and suddenly nodded. She glanced at Yu Qianjin and said, "The mineral water you drank that day was actually not ordinary water." He Qingqing stuttered a little because she was worried that she would accidentally spill the beans and reveal that she was the one who had concocted the magic potion. Little did she know that in the next second, Yu Qianjin casually said it out. "Mineral water? The bottle you gave me?" His lips hooked up into a smile, his beautiful eyes carrying a faint sharpness. Wanting to wrongly accuse the people he cared about, did she ask him? "Ss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They naturally believed He Qingqing's words, thinking that it was the magic potion concocted by Luo Qingqian. After all, Yu Qianjin had fallen in love with Luo Qingqian and not He Qingqing. Chapter 22-24. The gossips of the surrounding melon-eating crowd suddenly poured into He Qingqing's ears. Damn! So the so-called magic potion was actually created by He Qingqing? Ah? I knew it. How could she develop the antidote so quickly? So it turns out she has experience. Ah! I suddenly feel so ashamed. Oh! Still acting like she's the incarnate messenger of justice. Her face instantly paled, she gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. No, she couldn't fall like this. She was standing here for Yu Qianjin, so she had to make some commoners reveal their ugly faces. At this moment it was just the darkness before dawn. She could get through it, she absolutely could. Young Master Jean, you have to believe me. He Qingqing held the bottle of mineral water in front of him and said, no matter how confused you are right now, as long as you drink this, you'll understand. She held a restless heart, waiting for a result. Little did she know that this kind of apprehension didn't last for even a second, because Yu Qianjin took the bottle of mineral water from her hand and drank it without saying a word. Hiss! Gasps of cold air sounded in Luo Qingqian's ears, even she was a little nervous at this moment. The image of when she suddenly had a 100% favorable impression towards him was still clearly visible in her mind. A cool breeze blew, pear blossom petals fell on her pleated skirt, and the man standing in front of her was still holding her hand tightly, not letting go for even a moment. Even after he finished drinking the mineral water, He Qingqing still looked at Yu Qianjin with an excited expression. In her mind, the image of him changing seemed to have appeared, just like before, coldly looking at each girl. Among them, naturally included Luo Qingqian. Young Master Jean, she softly called out his name, but she couldn't see any clues from those bottomless eyes. She only knew that in the next second, he let go of Luo Qingqian's hand, narrowed his eyes, and the corners of his mouth hooked up into a very faint smile. Some of the girls standing around were particularly excited when they saw this scene, and one or two of them even wanted to scream out loud. Yu Qianjin let go of the civilian's hand. Did this mean that he had removed the spell? He was still that Yu Qianjin who kept people away, the school hunk who was known as abstinent. Luo Qingqian narrowed her eyes. Her eyes flickered slightly. At this moment, she didn't feel nervous at all. Perhaps it was because of what Yu Qianjin said just now, no matter what I do, don't blame me. Or maybe it was because from before he drank the water until after he drank it, his dark eyes didn't change at all. But in fact, Luo Qingqian was very clear that the reason why she wasn't flustered at all was because the system didn't give her a mission notification, which proved that the previous 100% favorability was real. It wasn't because of the magic potion that Yu Qianjin fell madly in love with him. In fact, if he thought about it this way, it was actually a little scary. This also confirmed Yu Qianjin's character. As long as he liked someone, he would love that person with all his might and disregard everything else. You're back, right? He Qingqing put her hands together and looked at him with a praying expression. At this moment, the blood in her body was boiling and burning. In the next second, Yu Qianjin's eyebrows slightly moved. He turned around and looked at Luo Qingqian, who was standing in the same place. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of pear blossoms. The fine petals mixed with the light fluttering snow appeared so beautiful. Chapter 22-25. Snow swirled down, pear blossoms danced in the sky. He used his actions to tell everyone whether the so-called magic potion existed or not. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he didn't give any explanation, and used the most direct method to tell everyone whether the so-called magic potion had magic in it or not. Luo Qingqian stared blankly for a moment, her snow-white cheeks instantly flushed red, and her heart couldn't stop thumping. All this time, she didn't know how to react. It seemed that she could only feel dizzy and breathless. After a long time, he slowly let her go. What entered his eyes was He Qingqing's pale face, and everyone's shocked expression. What magic potion, what crazy love, it was all a lie. Yu Qianjin still liked Luo Qingchen, and didn't dislike Luo Qingchen because he drank the antidote. This was really a big mistake, and couldn't help but feel ridiculous. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He Qingqing's hands trembled, and she bit her lips and kept shaking her head. Even at this moment, He Qingqing still believed that it was just a problem with the antidote, and that the magic potion must be real. Her mind flashed with the scenes of making the antidote. Where did it go wrong? Where did it go wrong? Only to hear a tragic scream. She crouched on the ground with her hands covering her head, and buried her head in her arms. At this moment, she only felt that her head was about to explode. After all, this was something she was looking forward to. She was looking forward to Yu Qianjin coldly turning around, looking forward to Luo Qingchen being abandoned and crying. But when all her expectations ran in the opposite direction, that kind of feeling was like a mountain, heavily pressing on her body, making her unable to breathe. The early winter snow was very cold, and Yu Qianjin's embrace was very warm. After this incident, Luo Qingchen suddenly felt that even if there was a magic potion in this world, so what? Like was like, and wouldn't change because of anything. Since that day, He Qingqing, in addition to her usual classes, spent every day and night in the laboratory researching the potion. She desperately tried to obtain the antidote, but no matter how she tried, she didn't succeed. Until Yi Sitian said something to her that completely shattered all her fantasies. Miss He, although I'm too lazy to say it to you, seeing that you've lost your mind, I feel that it's good to say it. Yi Sitian slowly raised her right hand, and shook her bandaged index finger, and said, 2 days ago, I asked you for the magic potion you made, right? I made up my mind and cut my finger with a knife, dripping my blood. And then? Did you give it to anyone? Did he fall in love with you? He Qingqing raised her head nervously, like a mad scientist, wanting to listen to the results of her experiment. She didn't know that the result was a heart-chilling cold. I spent a lot of effort to get Lu Qiufan to drink it, but in the end, Yi Sitian shrugged and rolled her eyes at He Qingqing. Nothing happened at all. Impossible. He Qingqing answered Yi Sitian almost instantly. Her bright eyes stared fixedly at her as she said, That's absolutely impossible. You were there that day as well. Young Master Jean only fell in love with her because he drank her blood. Chapter 22-26. Although Yi Sitian also hated Luo Qingchen, she didn't want to act like a fool and pretend that she hadn't seen the truth when it was right in front of her eyes. This post about the magic potion had long been treated as a joke on the forum. There was even a person called Failed Graduate from the Automatic Control Department who ridiculed them in a long tirade. There were so many people who commented on the post, it was really embarrassing. You must have used the wrong method. He Qingqing continued to quibble, biting her lip as she said, Did you follow what I taught you, Miss He? You're acting like a lunatic, so I won't keep you company. Yi Sitian's face darkened as she said, After all, that commoner is now under young Master Jin's protection. No matter what, our family can't compete with the Yu family. Last time, my father personally came to apologize, and I even wrote a 1,000-word apology letter to Luo Qingchen before young Master Jin let me off. Bombs can't be touched. Are you willing to accept this? He Qingqing said agitatedly. Are you willing to let such a lowly person become young Master Jin's girlfriend? He Qingqing grew up in the He family like a princess, and she hated the story of Cinderella the most. In her world, Cinderella had no right to meet the prince. If it weren't for magic, if it weren't for that pair of crystal glass slippers, if it weren't for the pumpkin carriage, she wouldn't have had the right to attend the banquet. And all of this was thanks to magic. Even now, even if everyone treated her as a joke, she didn't believe that such a lowly person would be favored by young Master Jean without magic. What can I do even if I'm unwilling? Yi Sitian clenched her fists as a sharp light flashed in her eyes. She snorted coldly, to be honest, I hate Luo Qingchen more than you do. She humiliated me more than you did. But what can I do? I can only wait. Whenever she thought of how arrogant Luo Qingchen was in class, she would get angry. Wait for what? He Qingqing frowned, not understanding the meaning behind Yi Sitian's words. Yi Sitian smiled and said, as the daughter of one of the 4 major families in a city, how can you be so uninformed? Don't you know that Daisy is coming back? Daisy? He Qingqing frowned and said in realization, are you talking about the Luo family that has the right to vote for the royal family? The Luo family was one of the 4 major families in a city. Even the aristocrats knew very little about them. If the Yu family was heroic, then the Luo family was mysterious. Everyone only knew that the Luo clan only had a single heir, and that the heir was a daughter. Because she was sent abroad to study when she was very young, people always used her English name when they mentioned her name, Daisy. Yes. Yi Sitian raised her eyebrows and smiled. It's said that the Luo family and the Yu family have been friends for generations. The 2 families already had a marriage alliance. Daisy's return this time must be because of Alice. Ha ha! After a long time, he chuckled and said, I suddenly feel that this world might not be so dark anymore. She slowly put down the test bottle in her hand and murmured excitedly, Luo Qingchen, ah Luo Qingchen, you didn't expect this, did you? Your real enemy isn't us, but young Master Jin's legitimate princess. Dirty commoner, you still want to be a phoenix? Dream on. A sparrow will always be a sparrow. Ugly will always be ugly. Even if Luo Qingchen was Yu Qingjin's girlfriend, in He Qingqing's eyes, she was still unbearably dirty. Chapter 22-27. Yawn. In the library, Luo Qingchen yawned again. Sitting opposite her, Mu Nanshi glanced at her and smiled. Don't tell me your young Master Jin misses you. Luo Qingchen rubbed her nose and snorted. You're thinking too much. Someone must be scolding me. Ever since she became Yu Qingjin's official girlfriend, she always sneezed whenever she moved. It seemed like there were a lot of people in this school who didn't like her. You're right. Mu Nanshi nodded very seriously. I hear people scolding you every day, so I'm numb. Mu Nanshi classmate, there are some things that you shouldn't say even if it's the truth, okay? It's so disgusting. Luo Qingchen rolled her eyes at her and pretended to be angry. In fact, she didn't care about this at all. Not to mention that the original owner's identity was originally from a wealthy family. Even if she wasn't, there might be a distinction between commoners and aristocrats in this world. But in another world, this distinction became especially laughable. She was too lazy to reason with the people in this school, because in their eyes, this distinction between noble and lowly had long been ingrained in them. They didn't understand and didn't understand. Unless they experienced a great family change, they would never understand. Ha ha! Mu Nanshi laughed happily. I'm finding that you're as self-aware as I am. As soon as her voice fell, she lowered her head to look at her book, then looked up and asked, Why didn't your young Master Jin come to class today? Him? Luo Qingchen's eyebrows trembled slightly. He didn't come yesterday either. Something must have happened at home. Ahem, ahem. A sharp cough was heard as Yi Sitian swaggered into the library with a stick in her mouth. She rolled her eyes and said, Some people just don't know. Young Master Jin is probably going to pick up Miss Daisy in 2 days for the regular meeting of the 4 major families in a city. Miss Daisy? Mu Nanshi frowned and muttered, A foreigner. Luo Qingchen didn't say anything. She just felt that the English name Daisy was so familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere before. However, it also felt like he hadn't heard of it before. It was just that he had a memory about it. You flat. You don't understand, do you? Yi Sitian was about to retort, but due to Yu Qingjin's influence, she abruptly swallowed the words she wanted to say. Instead, she crossed her arms over her chest and said, "She's the daughter of the Luo family, one of the 4 major families. She grew up abroad. Not only is she and young Master Jean well matched in social status, but they're also engaged." Luo Qingchen, who was still trying hard to remember, immediately got the answer when she heard Yi Xitian's words. Daisy was the original owner's English name. She used this name when she was abroad for so long. "Be reasonable, I've never heard that young Master Jean is engaged." Mu Nanshi narrowed her eyes at her and said, "I wonder what the consequences will be if young Master Jean finds out about spreading false news." "You!" Yi Xitian snorted coldly and bit her lip. "When did I say that I was engaged? It's just a fact that our families are of equal status." At this time, the best way was to deny it. In any case, what could they do if they refused to admit it? "You really know how to deny it." Mu Nanshi responded concisely and ignored her. Instead, she shook Luo Qingchen's hand and said, "Don't listen to her nonsense. Young Master Jean treats you well. You know it in your heart." Chapter 22-28. At the same time, the leaders of the 4 major families were discussing the voting rights of Mu Ou nation. Although Prince Liangma is the youngest child of King Mu, he is of pure blood. But the woman who gave birth to him has no status. But this doesn't deny that he is the only son of the king. Other than the 4 major families, all the people who had voting rights in Mu Ou nation were also discussing this matter. Among them, only the Yu family and the Luo family supported Prince Liangma to be the next king. The rest of the families supported King Mu's younger brother to succeed the throne. Although Mu Ou nation was a small country, it was located in an advantageous location and was rich in energy. To a certain extent, it controlled the lifeline of a city's golden triangle. The interests involved were very complicated. To put it simply, King Mu was seriously ill and unconscious. There were 2 forces supporting 2 people. One was King Mu's younger brother, Mu Ba, and the other was King Mu's illegitimate son, Mu Liangma. Yu Qianjin flew to Mu Ou nation this time to participate in the voting with his father. The voting was finalized. Originally, Mu Liangma's votes were far less than Mu Ba's. However, at the crucial moment, King Mu had a final burst of strength. He personally passed the throne to Mu Liangma and then went to paradise. There were some who were happy and some who were sad about the new king's ascension. The happiest people at the banquet were the Yu and Luo families. Luo Long was full of praise for Yu Qianjin and felt that the marriage between the 2 families was inevitable. Elder Luo, we have known each other for so many years. How about we settle this?" Yu Feng picked up his wine glass and glanced at Yu Qianjin. Yu Qianjin frowned slightly. His deep eyes were filled with complicated emotions, but he still raised his glass and said politely, "Uncle Luo, Daisy has been overseas all these years, right? Elder Luo, when will you let her come back and let the children meet?" Yu Feng was very excited. After all, if the marriage between the 2 families is successful, it will be the biggest news in a city's business circle. Moreover, many large-scale cooperation projects could be started immediately. It would definitely stir up a storm. Yes, the children have grown up and are more dependent on our madam. Most of the arrangements are made by her. It's time for them to come back. Luo Long waved his hand and said, "I really don't like those things overseas. I like our country's ideals, modesty and kindness. Yes. In this life, having a bosom friend, you have no regret." After a normal meal, Luo Long and Yu Feng seemed to have set the marriage between the 2 families on a steel plate. Yu Qianjin sat at the side, his brows furrowed even tighter. During this period, he could only take out his mobile phone and talk to Luo Qingchen to calm his anxious heart. So boring. What's the little girl doing? Yu Qianjin, DD, a text message ringtone sounded. Luo Qingchen glanced at it and quickly typed a line of words on her phone. "I'm looking at something. Is Moor Nation fun?" Luo Qingchen, Yu Qianjin replied almost instantly, without the slightest gap. Not fun. I miss you. Yu Qianjin. Then come back quickly. Luo Qingchen. After replying this sentence, Luo Qingchen's eyes fell on the brand new admission application form. Name, Luo Qingchen. English name, Daisy. Father, Luolong. Mother, Dai Wei. Looking at the admission application form, Luo Qingchen's mouth unconsciously curved into a faint smile. It seemed that the so-called female lead halo had finally fallen on her head again. Chapter 22-29. After a long time, her phone rang again. It was a long paragraph written by Yu Qianjin. If one day you find out that I'm not as strong as you think I am, don't immediately deny me. This is my first time interacting with a girl. If there's anything I'm not doing well, you must tell me. Then, no matter what rumors you hear, please believe them. Yu Qianjin. To be honest, Luo Qingchen suddenly wanted to know under what circumstances such a domineering and black-bellied person could say such words. It was probably because someone in Mua gave him pressure, and it was emotional pressure. I'll always be by your side. Luo Qingchen. These short words were the reassurance she gave him. It was just like how he had kissed her in front of everyone in the snowy scene back then. They knew when the other party felt uneasy and panicked. Then, they used the warmest words and the most decisive actions to reassure the other party. They didn't know when it started, but they slowly understood each other. They went from guessing a little to completely understanding each other's thoughts. This period of time seemed to be very long, but also very short. But for them, it was a way to get closer to each other. Early the next morning, physical education class. The snow had been particularly heavy these 2 days, and physical education had become the favorite subject of many girls. A series of activities such as snowball fights and building snowmen were carried out. Ever since Luo Qingchen became Yu Qianjin's girlfriend, the people in the class gradually began to talk to her. According to Mu Nanshi's words, when a person achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. She also benefited from it. Of course, there were still some girls who followed Yi Sitian who still didn't like her. But because of Yu Qianjin's deterrence, they couldn't do anything about it. Qingchen, Nanshi. One of the girls wearing a yellow sweater called out their names. Everyone seemed to be very kind. If there was no one to lead the way, perhaps they wouldn't be so clear about the difference between commoners and aristocrat. 20 minutes later, a complete snowman was ready. Just as everyone was admiring their work, Yi Sitian appeared out of nowhere, picked up a big rock, and threw it in the direction of the snowman. With that, the snowman was destroyed. 20 minutes of hard work had gone to waste. Everyone looked at Yi Sitian, but they didn't dare to say anything. Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes and turned to see that other than Yi Sitian, there was also the so-called magic potion maker, He Qingqing. Actually, He Qingqing was a student from the class next door. They weren't in PE class this time. But so what? In Alice's school, teachers were just decorations. However, what made Luo Qingchen feel strange was that Yi Sitian hadn't been jumping around in front of her recently. Why was she suddenly so arrogant today? Oh, the snowman is broken! Yi Sitian's phoenix eyes narrowed as she smiled. Is there some kind of sign? Ha! After saying the first sentence, she raised her voice and laughed twice. It was obvious that she was deliberately looking for trouble. Hey, hey, hey! Mu Nanshi snorted coldly and replied, What do you want to say? Laughing like an idiot, are you? Chapter 22:30. That was enough. Could it be that any commoner could point at her nose and scold her now? Ha ha ha. Little did she know that Mu Nanshi, who had been redeemed and completely transformed, was not afraid at all. She crossed her arms and looked at Yi Sitian with disdain. I don't care if I stay here or not. Yi Sitian, you probably know my family better than anyone else. That's good too. A person who has nothing is the least afraid of dying together with others. It had to be said that when Mu Nanshi said this, even Luo Qingchen was stunned. Mu Nanshi's expression, demeanor, and words were perfect. Her aura really gave off the feeling of a domineering female lead. You! Yi Sitian was instantly speechless. Her face turned red, but she could not say a word. She could only glare at her fiercely to express the anger in her heart. He Qingqing, who was beside her, was much calmer now. She not only went straight to the point, but also thought about what she said. Some people shouldn't always fantasize about being Cinderella, because… She paused and suddenly raised her eyes. In this world, Cinderella is not the only one who is worthy of a prince. There is also a veritable princess. Daisy, the daughter of the Luo family, one of the 4 great families, had yet to return to China. Luo Qingchen frowned. Recalling what Yu Qianjin said to him last night and the appearance of Yi Sitian and He Qingqing today, something must have happened. Or it could be said that something had happened. Tisk tsk. Qingqing is still the most organized. Yi Sitian seemed to have found a breakthrough. She rolled her eyes and said in a strange voice, "Let me tell you, Daisy is going to return to China soon. You already said this in the library yesterday." Luo Qingchen narrowed his cold eyes and looked at her indifferently. What does her return have to do with you?" "Miss Daisy's return naturally has something to do with me." Yi Sitian put her hands on her hips and said proudly, "We are the same kind of people. Aristocrats, aristocrats, aristocrats. Do you understand?" Yi Sitian emphasized the word noble 3 times in a row, and each time, her pitch was getting higher and higher. It was truly ear-piercing. Luo Qingchen didn't seem to care at all and lightly snorted. The corner of her mouth curved into an extremely faint smile as she said, "I'm afraid the outcome will disappoint you greatly. You're so stubborn. If my information is correct, Miss Daisy will be Alice next Monday." Yi Sitian looked at Luo Qingchen angrily and said, "Just you wait." As soon as she finished speaking, she glanced at He Qingqing, wanting to pull her away. Unexpectedly, she was still standing in the same place, staring at Luo Qingchen. After a long while, she slowly said, "You used a magic potion to make young Master Jean fall in love with you." It must be, her last sentence was almost a roar because she could never accept this fact. She firmly believed in the power of the magic potion. If not for this power, how could Yu Qianjin fall in love with a commoner like Luo Qingchen? However, everyone gradually couldn't take it anymore when she repeatedly said things that had long been denied. Repeating the same thing over and over again had worn down everyone's patience. Hence, this time, when He Qingqing mentioned the magic potion again, the entire sports field, regardless of whether they were students from her class or not, exploded. They seemed to coincidentally stand on Luo Qingchen's side. Chapter 2231. "Oh please. Can you stop talking about the magic potion? I'm really annoyed." Exactly. Young Master Jean has already said what he needs to say, yet he's still so persistent. How annoying! Harsh words entered He Qingqing's ears one after another. Her face turned slightly pale, and tears unconsciously welled up in her eyes. He Qingqing, who had always treated everyone with a high and mighty attitude, was facing this kind of treatment for the first time. Suddenly, she felt a wave of grievance in her heart. Why couldn't they understand that without her magic potion, Luo Qingchen wouldn't have been able to catch Yu Qianjin's eye? And if the potion had been dripped with her blood, then the person Yu Qianjin had fallen in love with would be her. They were well matched in terms of social status. She would be a veritable princess. But now everything had changed. Yi Sitian was right. Even if she was unwilling, it was useless. Now everything could no longer be changed. But she felt that the lowly commoners wouldn't get what she couldn't get. Yu Qianjin didn't lack princesses by his side. Although she hadn't seen Daisy before, her status in a city was higher than hers. She was also the daughter of one of the 4 big families. Just you wait. The good days will come to an end. After saying this, He Qingqing turned and left. She didn't stay for a moment longer. Mu Nanshi looked at Luo Qingchen worriedly and whispered, "Don't worry about it. You have to believe in young Master Jean. Do I look like I care? Luo Qingchen snorted. You'll know next Monday. It was a happy weekend. The first thing Yu Qianjin did when he returned from abroad was to call her. He was deeply afraid that she would be worried about the rumors and even run away. Since Luo Qingchen didn't tell him her home address, they agreed to meet at school. Deep into winter, thick snowflakes floated in the sky. Luo Qingchen wore a pure white down jacket and waited for him at the school gate. A limited edition black Rolls-Royce stopped in front of her. Luo Qingchen turned to look at Yu Qianjin, who slowly got out of the car. He held up a black umbrella, and his deep eyes glowed faintly. From the moment he got out of the car, all eyes fell on her. There was a touch of attachment and indescribable tenderness. Aren't you cold? He reached out to hold her waist, and his cool voice slowly entered her ears. Not seeing each other for a day felt like 3 autumns. Why did Luo Qingchen feel that Yu Qianjin cared about her more? I'm not cold. She chuckled and asked, Are you done with your business? Yes. Get in the car. As the hot air blew on her face, she felt her stiff cheeks gradually warm up. Yu Qianjin, who was at the side, placed an oversized gift box in her hand and said, Gift. Wow. There's a gift. Luo Qingchen happily took the gift box and carefully opened it. While she was opening it, Yu Qianjin, who was beside her, was still explaining the gift. Because I didn't know what you liked, I bought a little more. When Luo Qingchen saw the dazzling array of big brands, she silently muttered in her heart, Are you sure it's just a little more? There were all kinds of limited edition things. Louis Vuitton purses, Cartier watches, Dior lipsticks, Chanel perfume. When all these things were put together, it felt like they were sold at a night market stall for 2 yuan. Chapter 2232. Naturally, she was very happy to receive the gift. After all, for a boy like Yu Qianjin to think of bringing her a gift, it was a very rare thing. I've never given anyone a gift before, this is the first time. Yu Qianjin chuckled, with a touch of warmth in his eyes. He said, I have no experience, please forgive me. Oh, Luo Qingchen suddenly understood, and pretended to tease him. That's right, young Master Jean should have received gifts from others before. No, I didn't receive any, Yu Qianjin said with a serious face. I really don't even remember what they looked like. It had to be said that this wave of incomparably serious explanation really pierced the hearts of Yu Qianjin's countless little fangirls. Really? Really? I'm not you, there's always a Lu Chufan by your side. Ha ha. Listening to Yu Qianjin's somewhat strange words, Luo Qingchen couldn't help but reveal an unconcealable smile. It turns out that their family's young Master Jean looks very cute when he's jealous. I'm not familiar with him at all. She pursed her lips and replied with a resolute face. We haven't spoken a word in a long time. Ring. Little did she know that before her voice fell, her phone rang. The name displayed on the caller ID was none other than Lu Chufan, who she was trying to distance herself from just a second ago. Oh, Yu Qianjin glanced sideways at the phone screen, expressionlessly responded, and without saying anything, he stepped on the accelerator and sped up. Luo Qingchen shivered, she could completely feel the burst of cold air coming from his body. Even if the heater in the car blew on her, it couldn't warm her up. It was even colder than when she was standing in the snow just now. Cough cough, cough cough cough. She cleared her throat and pretended to be calm. He's probably calling to ask about homework. After all, there aren't many ordinary students in our class, and classmate Lu doesn't have many friends. I didn't answer, so he should call Nanshi in a while. Is that so? It must be. Her phone rang for a long time. It was like the devil was summoning her, dragging her into the abyss. There was a brief silence in the car. Luo Qingchen naturally knew what Yu Qianjin was waiting for. She could only pray silently that Lu Chufan would not call her again. A minute later, the corners of Luo Qingchen's mouth twitched. She put the phone on the car seat and laughed. Ha ha ha, look, he didn't. Ding-linged. Before she could finish her sentence, her phone rang again. The name on the screen was Lu Chufan. When Luo Qingchen was about to reach out to take the phone back, Yu Qianjin, who was sitting next to her, slid the answer button and pressed the speakerphone button. He shrugged and looked at her with his deep eyes as if to say, "Don't struggle, let's talk." Luo Qingchen closed her eyes and angrily roared in her heart. Then she said into her phone, "Classmate Lu, what's the matter? Are you calling to ask about tonight's homework? I'm outside now, you can call and ask." Qingchen, She was interrupted again. And it was not the same person. Why did these boys like to interrupt her so much? Couldn't they let her finish? And she had already said the 3 words, "Student Lu," so tactfully. Couldn't he call her Student Luo to alienate them? Chapter 2233. Luo Qingchen looked at Yu Qianjin's expression from time to time. She felt that his frozen face was particularly good-looking, but she was also a little scared. After all, he should be jealous. Not should, but definitely. The scenery outside the car window had become blurred. Yu Qianjin had already reached 140 kilometers per hour. Luo Qingchen could fully feel the pleasure of drifting. "Hi, what's the matter? I'm outside now." She used a particularly tactful way to talk to Lu Qiufan. Thinking that the other party was also a teenager with a high IQ, he should be able to understand the inconvenience in her tone. Little did she know that the other end of the phone was silent for only a second before Lu Qiufan's low and pleasant voice came through. "I heard from Nanshi that there were many people gossiping in school these 2 days. You should be in a bad mood." Lu Qiufan's voice was very soft, but every word was very clear. Luo Qingchen was slightly startled. Her body had a particularly stiff feeling. This feeling started from her toes and quickly spread to her head. The surrounding cold air was raging. She always felt like she had met a ghost in the middle of July. "And it's just a small matter. I don't care about it." Luo Qingchen replied lightly and deliberately changed the topic. "It's time to eat. Have you eaten yet?" At this time, if the other party said that he hadn't eaten, she would say that he should go eat first. If the other party said that he had eaten, she would say that she was also going to eat. Luo Qingchen thought that this was a perfect excuse to hang up the phone, but Lu Qiufan didn't intend to follow her words. It was obvious that he had something to say to her when he called her today. Luo Qingchen wouldn't care about what he said in normal times, but now she was worried that the gloomy teenager sitting next to her would be angry. "But I care." On the other end of the phone, Lu Qiufan frowned slightly. A faint gloominess flashed through his eyes as he said, "Last time I said that you don't have to promise him. I was serious." Hiss! In the next second, Yu Qianjin slammed on the brakes. An extremely harsh sound came from the flat highway. "Damn it! What's wrong?" Lu Qiufan frowned and asked nervously, "What happened?" "No, nothing." Luo Qingchen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Actually, I don't quite understand why you suddenly came to me to talk about this. No matter what my identity is, I've never been willing to compromise on something as trivial as love." Logically speaking, she wasn't someone who was good at sweet-talking. However, she felt that if she didn't say it now, the time bomb beside her would probably explode with a bang. "You like Yu Qianjin?" Lu Qiufan's tone was filled with disbelief. In his opinion, Luo Qingchen was completely different from other girls. No matter what happened, her face was always indifferent, and no one could tell whether she was happy, angry, sad, or happy. But in the end, she was always the mastermind and the winner of every event. Perhaps this was how he started to have a good impression of her. It was only after Little Fatty's matter that he started to care about her, and then to like her. He was the same as Mu Nanshi. He had redeemed himself because of Luo Qingchen. However, his feelings were much deeper than Mu Nanshi's. "I like him," Luo Qingchen answered without hesitation and smiled. The person sitting in the driver's seat didn't seem to be emitting a cold aura anymore. Even the space between his eyebrows had become much gentler. Silence, silence, silence. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone. After a long time, his voice slowly came from the other end of the phone. Chapter 2234. To Lu Qiufan, being liked was already a normal occurrence. Even if he wasn't a so-called aristocrat, no one had ever looked down on him at Alice Academy. Ever since he was young, no matter where he went, he was always the center of attention. Until Yu Qianjin's appearance made him feel the competition in the unseen world. He was a gentleman to every girl, but he never had a girlfriend. It wasn't until Mu Nanxi asked him for help that he had a girlfriend in name. Later, because of Mu Yao's death, they ended this relationship that shouldn't have existed in the first place. He had been waiting, like a dead tree in winter waiting for a ray of sunshine to shine. If at the beginning, he would still unconsciously compete with Yu Qianjin, then later on, the feeling of competition became more and more faint. Because the girls by Yu Qianjin's side kept changing, one after another, and never stopped. They were originally people from two different worlds, so there was no such thing as competition. Therefore, when Luo Qingchen appeared, he thought that if this girl had to choose, she would definitely choose him, and not Yu Qianjin. Although he never thought that Yu Qianjin would confess to her before him. One was an ordinary student that most people at Alice Academy looked down on, and the other was an aristocratic male god in the eyes of thousands of fangirls. Their lives didn't seem to intersect, and he had never seen Yu Qianjin agree to an ordinary student standing by his side. But it happened. To Lu Qiufan, he could only wait. After 2 or 3 days, Yu Qianjin would lose interest and wait for another girl to replace Luo Qingchen's position. But 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Time passed day by day, and Yu Qianjin still didn't abandon her. At this time, Lu Qiufan felt a little flustered. He didn't have anyone he loved in his life, and he wasn't like Yu Qianjin, who could have so many beautiful women by his side. To him, just one was enough. But he never thought that Yu Qianjin would treat her as if he had found his true love and protect her so seriously. The carriage once again fell into a short silence. The words that Yu Qianjin had said to her kept echoing in Luo Qingchen's ears. Why? She knew very well what he was referring to, and she already had an answer. Because I like it. Because I really like you. At this moment, she actually felt a little relaxed and was no longer nervous. It's not because he's a noble, nor is it because of his status. It's because he's Yu Qianjin. She said this to Lu Qiufan because she wanted to tell him that she had already made her choice when the balance in his heart was wavering. Are you serious? Of course. Wasn't it because of coercion? No. All right, I got it. His lips were thin and his teeth were light, but there was a touch of coldness in his tone as he said, "Since this is your sincere choice, I support all of your decisions. Thank you for your support." Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and replied, "If possible, look back at the scenery along the way. Perhaps there will be a different encounter." Lu Qiufan was stunned for a moment, but in the next second, he understood the meaning behind Luo Qingchen's words. He laughed helplessly and said, "It seems that she has told you a lot of things." "Yes. I wish you happiness." These 4 short words contained too many emotions. Chapter 2235. Hanging up the phone, Luo Qingchen raised her hands in surrender, looked at Yu Qianjin and said, "Respected Jinshao Darren, are you satisfied with my answer?" With a click, the seat belt was unfastened. Yu Qianjin didn't hesitate to possess her, and instantly pressed her against the wall in the car. Luo Qingchen stared blankly, put her hands on her chest, and asked somewhat nervously, What's wrong? If there's something to say, a gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. And that makes sense." He narrowed his eyes, and the corners of his mouth outlined an absolutely two-faced smile. In the next second, his right hand gently raised, and the moment it touched her chin, he slowly lifted it. A pair of eyes that were as deep as ink seemed to be completely focused on her pink little mouth. Luo Qingchen seemed to understand Yu Qianjin's completely two-faced thoughts in this brief exchange of glances. Just as she was about to say something, Yu Qianjin kissed her without hesitation, and with his exclusive breath, he dominated her thoughts little by little. Until he was completely in control, she felt her body lighten, and directly fell into his arms. The heater in the car blew on her face. She closed her eyes and felt a sense of tiredness. She only knew that his embrace was very warm, and his tone was very light. Close to her ear, he spoke very possessive words, and this sentence, accompanied by, echoed in her mind over and over again. "You're mine for the rest of your life, whether dead or alive." When she opened her eyes again, it was already evening. Yu Qianjin's Maserati was parked on an empty beach. The sun was setting in the west, and the sunset in the sky was colorful, looking particularly beautiful. Luo Qingchen rubbed her eyes, looked at the scenery outside the car window, and complained about why Yu Qianjin didn't wake her up, while admiring the beautiful sunset. "Let's go. Let's get out of the car." Okay. The sea breeze gently brushed her cheeks, and the air was filled with the salty smell of the sea. Luo Qingchen took Yu Qianjin's hand, the corners of her mouth raised in a very faint smile. "I like the sea very much." Vast, free, unfettered, he always felt that as long as he closed his eyes while standing by the sea, the world would stop. All the time follows you, and so does the wind. Just as she was immersed in it, Yu Qianjin's phone rang. The moment he lowered his head to look at the phone screen, he frowned slightly. "Hey, Dad." The air around them became heavy as he spoke. It was probably the first time that Luo Qingchen had seen Yu Qianjin so serious, just like a little old man. Although he didn't say much, it was obvious that he respected the person on the other end of the phone. After about 5 minutes, he hung up the phone. Luo Qingchen stood to the side and didn't speak first. Instead, she waited for him to speak first. "I originally wanted to bring you here tonight." Yu Qianjin pointed to the villa in front and said, "I have already booked the room." "Poof. What do you want?" Luo Qingchen gave a soft laugh and said to ease the atmosphere, "What kind of nonsense are you thinking about? Even if I originally wanted to do something, now I don't have the chance." He walked in front of her, gently stroked her head, and planted a kiss between her eyebrows. "Tonight, I'm going to see Uncle's daughter. She will officially transfer to Alice Academy tomorrow." "And then?" Luo Qingchen frowned, pretending to look at him with a worried expression. Her pair of clear-as-water eyes were full of drama. Chapter 2236. Hearing until here, Luo Qingchen couldn't help but laugh twice in her heart. "Young Master Yu, leaving the worst impression, are you sure?" Cough cough. She cleared her throat, pretending to be calm and said, "All right, I believe you." "And good." He took her hand, gentle with a touch of domineering, holding her hand, full of hot temperature. Luo Qingchen could even feel his determination, as well as the position she had in his heart that no one could reach. But the scene was too real. She was somewhat nervous. After all, Yu Qianjin's temperament is what kind of person? Black-bellied, overbearing, proud and arrogant. This kind of person generally has a strong vengeful heart. She has reached this step and did not tell him her identity, waiting until he knows. Always feel, it will be a bit. The feeling of seeking death. That. Sitting back on the co-pilot seat, Luo Qingchen tentatively opened her mouth. "That Miss Daisy, actually. Don't worry, leave everything to me. I mean, Qingchen, I like you more than everything I have now." He turned his eyes, his expression focused and serious, with deep affection and unspeakable obsession. Looking at this kind of Yu Qianjin, she actually felt somewhat dazed. So that her mind was blank, the words she wanted to say seemed to be forgotten at this moment. If she said she was not touched, it would be a lie. Suddenly she began to feel lucky about her identity. If she was only the current Luo Qingchen, a Luo Qingchen without identity, without status, wanting to stand beside him, it will bring him a lot of pressure and trouble. She herself does not care about the gossip, but it will cause him to attack and hurt. Fortunately she is Luo Qingchen. Fortunately she is Daisy. Fortunately, she was the one who could stand by her side legitimately. All along, she felt that identity this thing is not particularly important. But at this moment she felt this thing is so important. Standing at the school gate, looking at the Maserati's fast-moving figure, she seemed to come back to her senses, the words that she had forgotten in her mind. Damn it! What I want to say is, Bao Bao is the daughter of the Luo family that you are going to meet. Of course, when he muttered this sentence to himself, he didn't know what to say. Yu Qianjin's Maserati had long disappeared from her sight. Only dust and sand were left on the ground. 8:10 p.m. Everything was ready for her in the Luo family's villa. Exquisite makeup, slightly curly long hair, a light pink dress, and candy-colored high heels. Sitting in front of the vanity mirror, she opened the gift box that Yu Qianjin had given her and put on all the matching luxury items. Finally, she applied a layer of Dior Rouge on her lips and smiled in satisfaction at the mirror. While chuckling, she didn't forget to say, "Hello, the daughter of the Luo clan." With the help of the maid, she got into her exclusive luxury car, the Porsche 911, and followed behind the Luo couple's car to the Royal Empire Hotel. On the surface, tonight was a gathering between the two great friends that hadn't seen each other in a long time, but in reality, it was her and Yu Qianjin's blind date. In fact, she really wanted to know, if Daisy was someone else, what kind of method would Yu Qianjin use to make her hate him? Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance to find out. Inside the Royal Empire Hotel, Yu Qianjin was dressed in a formal suit. Between his eyebrows, he had an imposing appearance. From time to time, he would look at his phone. The 5 messages he sent her had not received a reply. Could it be that she was angry because of his gathering tonight? At this moment, his heart was faintly uneasy. Turned out that a person's mood could really change because of another person. Chapter 2237. A melodious music sounded. The entire royal hotel was filled with a luxurious atmosphere. The European-style decoration, the golden carvings, the glass goblets made everything look like a noble. Yu Qianjin glanced at his watch, his eyebrows slightly knitted. His expression was anxious. Yu Feng seemed to have seen through his expression. He slowly took a puff of his cigar, looked at him and said, "The marriage between Yu family and Luo family is inevitable, don't think too much." Yu Qianjin knitted his eyebrows, took a deep breath, looked at Yu Feng and said, "Dad, it's about the relationship. What's wrong with the relationship?" Yu Feng's tone was a little unhappy. "Are you still worried that Dad won't choose the best wife for you?" For Yu Feng, since he was born in the 4 great families, this kind of relationship had always been arranged. Moreover, the family's interests were more important than anything else. This kind of thinking had been instilled in his son since he was young. Therefore, no matter how Yu Qianjin had a girlfriend, it had always been very short. Because he knew, since he was the only son of Yu family. Then in the world of relationships, Yu Qianjin, these 3 words were the most worthless. "I just want to have the right to choose." Yu Qianjin narrowed his eyes, knitted his eyebrows tightly. He didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. He knew that he couldn't back down, since he had already spoken. He should let that arbitrary, high and mighty man at least listen to him finish his words. Purring, only the sound of the table being knocked, Yu Feng looked at him angrily and said, "You don't have a choice. If you don't want to marry Luo family's daughter as your wife, you're not my son. Life was fair, what you have, you will always lose." Ayah. Madame Yu, who was at the side, hurriedly mediated. "Old man, why are you so fierce?" As for you, Madame Yu looked at Yu Qianjin and said, "Your father and I also had a marriage alliance in the past, aren't we quite happy now? Don't say any more, you're not allowed to respond to your father." "Mom," Yu Qianjin took a long breath and said, "It's because of this, so you don't have a choice, don't say that." Madame Yu's expression changed. She almost immediately interrupted him. Little did she know that at this time, Yu Feng's tone had calmed down. As if he had returned to being an elder, he looked at him earnestly and said, "What happened between your mother and me is not what you think it is." This seemed to be an explanation and a sign of respect. "But I want the right to choose." His eyes were filled with determination as he looked at Yufeng with a tone that he had never used before. "I beg you, Dad." This was the first time he had asked someone for help, and the person he was asking for help from was his own father. He didn't feel ashamed because in his eyes, his father was tall and mighty. No matter how outstanding he was, his father was incomparably lofty. "You've never met Daisy. How can you be so sure that she's not the girl in your heart?" Yufeng looked at him and said, "You have to believe in Dad's judgment. Daisy studied abroad a long time ago. Maybe you'll have a different opinion if you get to know her better." "I don't think I need to know." Yu Qianjin replied frankly, "I have someone I like." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a sip of the red wine beside him. His eyes were filled with determination. When the two elders of the Yu family heard this, they were shocked. After all, they had never heard that their son had someone he liked. This was the first time he told them about his so-called love in front of them. Chapter 2238. Luo Long's Lincoln limousine slowly stopped in front of the Empire Hotel. Luo Qingqian's Porsche followed closely behind. They would probably never know how tense the atmosphere in the Empire Hotel was at that moment. Luo Qingqian lifted her pink dress and looked at the crystal high heels on her feet that were like glass. The corner of her mouth unconsciously raised into a faint smile. It seemed like she was really a Cinderella who was about to meet her Prince Charming. There was a faint scent of incense in the air. She walked forward step by step. When she looked at the door that was carved with golden carvings, she could not help but feel a little nervous. When Yu Qianjin saw her, was he more excited, or more calm, or more angry? Everything would be revealed soon. At the same time, the father and son in the hotel lobby were still in a deadlock. Since they were young, they had never opposed each other because of a topic. This was the first time it was because of love. Anyway, I'll say it here. Yufeng seemed like he did not want to talk to Yu Qianjin anymore. There was a hint of sharpness in his eyes. He directly turned an undecided topic into a multiple-choice question. He paused for 2 seconds and continued, "Unless you are no longer my son, your marriage with Daisy is inevitable. I will always like the person I like. I will be with her even if I have to risk my life." Yu Qianjin did not give in at all and replied, "Unless I die, I will never let go." It did not matter if his surname was Yu or not, it did not matter if he was a young master or not, it did not matter if he was rich or not. At least, in his current life, love was the most important thing. The future was unpredictable. He had to cherish the present. Yufeng covered his chest. It was obvious that he was very angry. Madame Yu, who was at the side, gave him many looks, telling him to stop talking. Yu Qianjin was speechless. He swallowed the surging river that was at the bottom of his heart. His father's heart was not good. He knew that he was usually very busy and could not say such disobedient words. It was just that he could not do it this time. After a while, he changed his tone and said to Yufeng, "Father, you taught me to respect and love the country since I was young, so even though I was born in this family, I never went abroad to further my studies. Now, why do you insist that I marry a person who studied abroad?" Daisy. He remembered that his father used to dislike girls with English names the most. But now, she has a Chinese name. Daisy is just her nickname. When Yufeng said this, there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. Daisy, 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 Daisy. She thought that she was Dai Wei's daughter, so she had a nickname, Daisy. It just so happened that when she went abroad, she used such an English name. Who didn't have a vigorous youth? Even in his era, there were many people who were willing to die for love. But so what? No matter how much they loved each other, no matter how much they liked each other, they would eventually lose to reality. Everyone can only accompany you on a certain path. That path is not called a detour, it is called growth. Nickname? Then I would like to know, what is her real name? Yu Qianjin's good-looking lips curled into a cold smile. To be able to enter your eyes. Qi Chen. Waiting for the peach blossom to smile, a fleeting thought Gu Qinche. When Yu Feng said this sentence, he was almost shouting, his eyes were slightly red. Chapter 2239. Qinchen, Qinchen, Qinchen. Luo. Qi Chen. In this world, there were many people with the surname Luo, but there were not many people with the name Luo Qinchen. He felt that his heart was beating so fast that it almost jumped to his throat, and he could not breathe at all. All right. Little did he know, at this time, his mother stood up and sighed deeply. Let the child's world be as he wishes. The things that we could not get in the past, why should we be so cruel to let them not get it? But the facts have proven that the choices that our parents made for us were right. Yu Feng replied almost instantly. In the next second, Madame Yu slowly raised her head and said, But what if you could redo your life and make a choice again? Silence, silence, silence. The entire hall seemed to have fallen into a dead silence. Not knowing how long had passed, Yu Feng sighed deeply and said, forget it, I just feel guilty in my heart. It's true that you owe her, but if her daughter does not like our Xiao Jin, wouldn't it be a bad thing with good intentions? Madame Yu patted his back lightly, helping him to calm down. Let the past be the past. No matter what kind of mistake we made, the child is already so big. There is no need to mix our wishful thinking with the child. But I have already told Elder Luo, what should we do? Yu Feng sighed again and again. His eyebrows were tightly knitted. Yu Qianjin seemed to have just regained his senses, and he said with some difficulty, What did you say her name was? Her? Bang! At this moment, without waiting for Yu Feng to reply, the door of the hotel was slowly opened. Luo Qinchen held Madame Luo's hand and followed behind Luo Long, walking into the hall. She squinted her eyes, and the light scattered on her snow-white cheeks. The temperature in the room was just right, and her ears were slightly red. She could not hide the smile on her face, and her long eyelashes were slightly trembling. She wore the crystal shoes and walked towards the prince, who was well matched in terms of social status. She walked towards Yu Qianjin, who gave her a good impression of him when they first met, but at that moment, he gave her a good impression of him. At this moment, it would be a lie to say that she wasn't nervous. But she felt that Yu Qianjin should be more frequent than her. After all, his tightly knitted brows and the shock in his deep eyes were something she had never seen before. Elder Luo, you're finally here. Have a seat. Just a second ago, Yu Feng was so angry that his face was red, but when he saw Luo Long, he immediately became calm and serious. There was a bit of a traffic jam on the road, so I'm late. Luo Long smiled. This must be young Master Yu. What a gentleman. Hello, Uncle Luo. When she heard his cool and pleasant voice, she didn't look confused but quickly regained her composure. Yu Feng, who was standing at the side, was stunned for a moment. After all, his son was still having an intense argument with him just now. He had always thought that Luo Long and his daughter would do something to leave a bad impression on him. She didn't expect him to greet her so enthusiastically. Good. Luo Long smiled happily. This is my daughter, Daisy. You can also call her Qinchen. And Miss Daisy. He curled his lips into a smile, and his deep eyes were filled with many complicated emotions. She couldn't see through him at that moment. Chapter 2240. Since you're back in the country, just call me Qinchen. Luo Qinchen pursed her lips and pretended to be calm as she looked at the Yu couple. Hello uncle, hello auntie. Good. Have a seat. Delicacies, lobster and shark fin. Every dish in the Royal Empire Hotel was of high quality. Luo Qinchen sat beside Yu Qianjin. Both parents sat on their left and right side. Yu Feng spoke first, as if he was afraid that Yu Qianjin would say something that would embarrass both parties, so he decided to speak first. Elder Luo, that day we were discussing the engagement between the two families. I think we should listen to their opinions. Yu Feng said this very tactfully, but Luo Long still understood. His expression changed slightly. Could it be that young Master Yu already has someone in his heart? Luo Qingchen pursed her lips. When Luo Long said this, she almost laughed out loud. The original owner was a child who was spoiled since she was young. She could get whatever she wanted. There was almost nothing that she couldn't get. Luo Long naturally understood what Yu Feng meant. He couldn't bear the grievance for his daughter. No, no, no. Elder Luo, listen to me. It's just that the child has grown up. She needs to interact with her to know whether she likes or not. When Yu Feng said this, he even glanced at Dai Wei. But Dai Wei's eyes never fell on her. She had an indifferent expression. Occasionally, she would reveal a faint smile. Most of the time, she was scooping soup for Luo Qingchen. Elder Yu, I don't understand what you're saying. If young Master Yu doesn't have someone in his heart, then does that mean he doesn't like our family's Qingchen? Luo Long's expression didn't look good. After all, he was the head of the 4 big families. It was inevitable for him to be arrogant. If the other party wasn't Yu Feng, he would have slammed the table and left. From then on, he would see this family as his enemy and make them unable to survive in a city. Puchi Luo Qingchen lightly pursed her lips, the corner of her mouth raised a faint smile and said, Dad, don't be angry, I actually want to hear what young Master Yu has to say. Yu Qianjin looked at her with a faint smile in his deep eyes. He could clearly see that Luo Qingchen was enjoying the show. To be honest, it was a little infuriating but also a little cute. I think. Abalone and shrimp rolls. Before Yu Qianjin could finish his sentence, the waiter served a brand new dish. Dai Wei revealed a faint smile and picked up her chopsticks in a dignified manner. Your favorite. Mommy will get you some. Okay. Before she could say the second, a Luo Qingchen was cut off by Yu Qianjin on the side. He raised his hand slightly and patted her head. This girl's stomach hasn't been feeling well for the past 2 days. It's better for her to eat something light. Everyone was stunned. Mr. and Mrs. Luo's face was filled with astonishment. Mr. and Mrs. Yu were shocked. What was going on? What happened? What was Yu Qianjin talking about? These 3 questions kept flashing in the minds of the 2 elders of the Yu family. They couldn't get rid of these questions for a while. Why did Yu Qianjin, who had such a strong attitude just now, suddenly become so docile? It was as if the argument just now never happened. Yu, how do you know that her stomach isn't feeling well? It must be said that only Luo Qingchen's mother Dai Wei could ask such a straightforward question at this moment. Chapter 2241. Sometimes, silence was a kind of moment of stillness. You would realize that the surroundings suddenly stopped moving, everyone was looking at her with a strange gaze. After a long time, Yu Feng was the first to regain his senses. His eyes were a little flustered. No, it must be wrong. He knew his son's personality better than anyone else. It was impossible for him to compromise so quickly. There must be something fishy about this unusual behavior. Elder Luo, Yu Feng hurriedly said, my son might be a little nervous today, don't be offended. Oh, Luo Long suddenly said, it's fine. If you didn't say that, I would have thought that they knew each other beforehand. Dai Wei heard this and suddenly remembered that her daughter seemed to have entered Alice Academy before. Could it be that they really knew each other? Where were we just now? Oh, right. Yu Feng changed the topic. Just now I said that the children have their own thoughts about relationships, just let them be, we shouldn't interfere too much. Yu Feng knew that there were some words that he would say more tactfully than Yu Qianjin. After all, the 2 families had been friends for many years. They couldn't be estranged because of a marriage that wasn't fated. In the past few minutes, although Yu Feng didn't completely understand, he knew that at this moment, if he still forced Yu Qianjin, he was afraid that it would be counterproductive. Elder Yu, you mean to forget about the children's marriage? Luo Long's eyebrows moved slightly, There was a touch of displeasure in his tone. But it wasn't very obvious. He cleared his throat and said, "Our family's Qing heard that she was coming to see young Master Yu, so she specially dressed up." Luo Qingchen was slightly startled. Her cheeks unconsciously blushed. Why did she feel like she was the target, and her father was desperately trying to sell her to her? "And very beautiful." Yu Qianjin raised his eyebrows slightly, the corner of his mouth curved into a faint smile. "Uncle, just call me Qianjin." Luo Long lowered his eyes, half squinted at Yu Qianjin and said, "So your father thinks that you should have the right to choose, do you think so too?" Actually, Luolong's question was very clever. Not only did it seem natural, but the answer could also be heard. "Uncle Luo, my father has always been rather slow in dealing with emotional issues," he replied politely with a smile on his face. "Of course, I don't think so." "What?" When Yu Feng heard Yu Qianjin say this, his eyes widened. The beard on his face was almost blown up by him. What was wrong with his son today? Just now, before he met the daughter of the Luo family, he kept saying that he wanted to pursue his true love. Ever since he saw her, he had overturned his previous statement. Wasn't this a trap for his father? "Old you don't talk, let's listen to the child." Luo Long's face had a trace of smile. It was probably because Yu Qianjin's words just now made his impression on Yu Qianjin increased. "If Uncle Luo really wants to ask me." In the next second, his eyes fell on Luo Qingchen's body. There was a trace of faint affection under his eyes. "Such a cute girl like Qing, if you don't marry her, wouldn't it be a big regret?" "Yu Qianjin." Luo Qingchen looked at his focused eyes and slightly stunned. That was a trace of deep affection that could penetrate through his eyes. Chapter 2242. "Xiao Jin, you. What are you talking about?" Yu Feng stuttered, his eyes filled with doubt. "Old Yu, don't get involved, I think Xiao Jin is right. Ha ha, today is such a happy day, I must drink more." Luo Qingchen couldn't help but laugh. Although her father doted on her, he was a serious man. After all, successful people more or less had the burden of being an idol like a celebrity. In the original owner's memory, her father rarely had this kind of smile. This was one of the rare times. They were both daughters, her father's lover in his previous life. This was an important matter for her life, so naturally she was happy. This night's starry sky was peaceful and beautiful. Melodious music played in the Royal Empire Hotel. The air was filled with a faint fragrance. A table full of delicious food was served plate by plate. He sat beside her, helping her pick up delicious food, helping her peel prawns, serving her soup, and helping her get tissues. Yu Feng saw this scene. One moment he was stunned, the next moment he was stunned. Luo Long looked at Yu Qianjin with satisfaction. His heart seemed to have already recognized him as his son-in-law. After dinner, the parents of the two families tactfully left first. Yu Qianjin sent Luo Qingchen back alone. After all, in their eyes, the two children had just met. Even if it was love at first sight, they still needed to understand each other. But Luo Qingchen felt that after the perfect prince, she would meet the devil. Standing in front of Yu Qianjin's Maserati, the surrounding cold wind blew. She bit her lips, her eyes carrying a touch of liguang. Pretending to be weak, she said, "Young Master Jin, can I go back by myself?" He slightly nodded, his deep eyes carrying a playful look. His good-looking lips slightly curved, looked at her and said, "What do you think, Student Luo?" Cough, cough, cough. She heard this, desperately coughed a few times, and immediately said, "Let me explain, get in the car first." Yu Qianjin said concisely, not giving her a chance to explain. It was a familiar front passenger seat with a different identity. What they saw was different from the fairy tale. In the fairy tale, Cinderella turned the tables and became the princess. On the other hand, she was the opposite. She was the daughter of a noble, using the identity of a commoner to come to the side of a prince who was a match for her. But one day, the prince found out the truth. The script was so novel that she couldn't react in time. Luo Qingchen, yes. She pursed her lips and looked at the speeding speedometer. Her heart was in her throat. She had a feeling that the other party's powerful aura was oppressing her bit by bit. Explain yourself. Yu Qianjin glanced at her and said, Explain yourself. In the next 5 minutes, she really gave a brief explanation. She could not reveal her identity when it came to Mu O's voting rights. However, due to some special reasons, she had no choice but to return home. So, what's the special reason? After a full 5 minutes of explanation, Yu Qianjin's questions hit the nail on the head. The reason why the original owner returned home was purely because she saw Lu Qiufan in a magazine overseas, so she came back. But this reason, she could never tell Yu Qianjin. I just missed home, so I came back early. Luo Qingchen's eyebrows moved slightly. She always looked a little flustered when she lied. But she knew that she had to pretend to be calm in order to make the lie come true. Chapter 2243. Who said I was lying? Luo Qingchen's brows slightly knit as she pursed her lips and said, I didn't. After that, Yu Qianjin picked up the tablet beside him and handed it to her as he said, 15 minutes ago, I pulled up all the information about the Luo family's daughter. It's you. Luo Qingchen was a bit stunned as she took the tablet with a confused expression. The information stopped at the 3rd page. Actually, the moment she took the tablet, she knew that Yu Qianjin was angry. First, it was because she didn't tell him about her identity. Second, it was because the information said that the person he worshipped the most was called Lu Qiufan. It had to be said, the previous host had a hole in her brain. Just keep the person you worshipped in your heart, why say it out loud? This information. Luo Qingchen let out a long sigh as she seriously looked at him and said, I like you. See, the long sound of brakes rang in her ears. She felt that if it wasn't for her seatbelt, her head would have hit the windshield in front of her. Without the whistling of the wind, the surroundings seemed to have suddenly become quiet. Snowflakes slowly fell from the sky as she felt a bit nervous and uneasy in her heart. In the next second, just as she was about to raise her head, Yu Qianjin had already leaned over and hugged her. A domineering kiss instantly fell, not giving her a chance to breathe. But she could feel his heat, anger, possessiveness, and a trace of panic from his deep kiss. She always felt that when it came to love, Yu Qianjin wasn't the saint of love he seemed on the surface. Rather, he was a bit immature. Yu Qianjin. His kiss was very deep, swallowing her bit by bit. In a daze, he seriously called out his name. He replied, You're mine, whether you're dead or alive, you're mine. Lu Qiufan can't take you away, but I'm still jealous of him. What are you jealous of him for? She took the moment he let go of her to purse her lips and say, I'm your girlfriend. But your password is his birthday. Yu Qianjin looked at her and his brows slightly knit. He tightly hugged her and said, I'm thinking, if I didn't decisively walk forward and stand in front of you at that time, would you have chosen him? Will you choose him? Every time he thought of this, he would feel a bit of fear. For him, Luo Qingchen was more important than anyone else in this world. He didn't care if she was a commoner or a noble. He didn't care if his family would oppose it. So what if she was a commoner? It was enough that he liked her. I won't. After a long time, she suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with determination. Looking at Yu Qianjin, she said word by word, I will not like him, because I am destined to meet you. There were some people she was destined to meet. She knew that he was waiting for her, so she never stopped in front of other people. It was probably because her eyes were too clean. After Yu Qianjin looked at her eyes, he touched her head and said, Fool! So we're reconciled? Although they didn't seem to have quarreled, the atmosphere suddenly became relaxed because of his simple words. Of course not. Why? Because Miss Daisy hid the fact that she was the only daughter of the Luo family from me. Luo Qingchen blinked her big eyes and said, Didn't I just explain it?